from across the globe today. My name is April Wilson, and I'm Deputy CEO of the Luxembourg Microfinance and Development Fund. I'm absolutely honoured to be invited here today with Ada to join this webinar, Microfinance Plus, Investing Beyond Traditional MFIs. It's a particularly pertinent topic at the moment. If we think about it, until recently, this webinar would not have been held. We'd have been holding it in an auditorium. Business models have had to change across the world, and of course, microfinance is in no way excluded from this. We're seeing a lot of emerging trends at the moment. Loan officers are going out into the field with tablets. We're noticing digital cash. And of course, as models change, we're also noticing microfinance expanding into different areas. We see new education models. We see new agricultural models too. Yet, of course, such innovations come with risk. A critical factor for microfinance business models has been the human touch. But how can the human touch be integrated when models become increasingly remote? Now, these are very, very interesting discussions, and investors also have a lot to say about these new models. And I'm sure there's a lot of questions from the audience as well. This session, and I know many of you will have joined microfinance, lunchtime microfinance meetings before, is meant to be extremely interactive. Please ask questions using the comment selection, and please direct them to panelists and participants so that we can all see them and join the dialogue together. The more questions you ask, the more interactive the session will be, and also the easier my life will be. So I'd be extremely grateful to receive a lot of them. I'm sure you're very interested in hearing from both our panelists who've got a lot of expertise in this Microfinance Plus topic. First of all, let me introduce Laura Foschi, who is the Executive Director of ADA. She's been working at the organisation for over 8 years and previously worked in investment at Consorcio Etimos, and also has spent time working in technical assistance across the globe. We've also joined by Raymond today, who spent most of his life in the Big Four. He's now taken on a variety of directorship positions, both internationally and more locally. And of course, we're delighted to have him in our very own fund, Luxembourg Microfinance Development Fund, which works very closely with ADA as its investment advisor. We invest predominantly in Tier 2 and Tier 3 MFIs, and interestingly, have also been venturing into our first Microfinance Plus investment. Raymond is also a strong proponent of the unique opportunity that COVID presents to make changes to the way we think about things, notably to our investments, and become perhaps more socially conscious. Without further ado, let me get over to hearing from them. Raymond, I happen to know that LMDF recently made its first investments into some Microfinance Plus institutions. Can you explain the rationale, okay, and tell us a bit more about the first investment?
I think to understand why we went this way, I need to explain very shortly what LMDF is. LMDF, I think, is a perfect example of the Sustainability Development Goal number 17, which means partnerships. Okay, indeed, our shareholders are categorized mainly in 3 categories: A, B, and C. Category A is government. Okay, is public sector. Category B is institutional investors, and category C is the individuals, which means retail investing. And the beauty of the system is that category A provides guarantee to first loss guarantee to category C. Okay, and so we are today active in 26 countries, and the major growth over the last years have come from category C, which means individual shareholders, okay, who are wanting to go beyond philanthropy, who want to go into impact finance, so which means who invest mainly, okay, not to create financial return for themselves, okay, but to finance and create social impact all over the globe. Okay. And it is, we have realized over the last months and years together with Ada, okay, who is in fact our investment advisor, okay, we have realized that the category C shareholders mainly, but also A and B, they are trying to find a closer identification with the ultimate investors, okay, which means the people who are in the field. That's mainly why we go into microfinance, what we call microfinance plus, which means organizations which all are MFIs and who go into larger scope of support to their clients, okay, but always client focused, or companies which operate in a similar way for example, MCOPA, or I'm sure we will get back to those questions later on.
And actually, on that note, I wanted to ask Laura a bit more about the social impact and the impact on the SDGs of these microfinance plus models. Raymond's just mentioned MCOPA, and I imagine that's a very interesting place to start.
Yes, thank you, Apricot. This question will allow me to explain why ADA is moving towards this microfinance plus concept. For more than 25 years ago, ADA has been looking for innovative ways to improve life of low-income people and to help people to escape poverty. And we did, and we have been doing that through the support of microfinance institutions, because microfinance institutions is supporting with financial services, micro-entrepreneurs, and small-sized businesses. This is a very, is the main focus that we had for years and still are one of our focus. But in parallel, we also consider that if we want to really contribute to achieving SDGs, inclusive finance must open up to innovative solutions to enable the poor to access basic services. If I look at the recent statistics, we see that 860 million people lack access to electricity, globally speaking. 785 million people lack basic drinking water services. 500 million of smallholder farmers live with less than $2 per day, and they don't have access to any kind of financial services to improve their farm and their crops. 637 million people in the world that are aged more than 15 are not educated, and half of the world population still don't receive the health services that they need. So financial inclusion can play an important role, both in achieving the funding that is necessary for infrastructure and for the ongoing service payment. Fintech, pay-as-you-go models can be very impactful to help people in access basic services.
So these models can be very helpful helping people to assess these services. But as an investor, it must be rather different to examine these new models from the models that you traditionally invested in. Raymond, do the processes change? Do you have to look at things differently when you're investing in a microfinance plus model?
Yes and no. I think what we realize, and that's why I explained what I explained before, is what we realize is that especially in this period of time, okay, our investors have, and the population in general in our countries here, they have realized that some of the things they always were perceiving as a given, okay, which means health security and job security, for example, is not a given anymore, which had as a result that it increased their sensitivity, okay, to all of these concerns, okay, and all of these countries where this was never given, okay. And this is why we see for the moment much more interest, and COVID, I can say it, this pandemic has a positive influence on our investors. And we see, for example, that also our institutional investors, they are launching campaigns, okay, with their clients, okay, with their retail clients to invest in structures like LMDF, because they want, on one side, really fill their demand, which means I want to invest, okay, but not only, obviously I want to recover my money at one moment, okay. This is why this guarantee from the category A shareholders, the public sector, is so important. On the other side, I'm not interested whether I will earn 3 or 5%, okay, of my investment. I'm more interested in the impact I create, especially in these times where these countries or many of these people, okay, might even need more help from our side than on the other side. Okay. On the other side, what I explained before is that they want to be able more closely to identify themselves with those who benefit from that money, which means they want to know what happens really with my money, which means they are not interested anymore to say, I'm investing in a fund which invests in another fund, which invests in another fund, okay? And in the end, I don't know where my money in the end is, okay? And that is why I think this microfinance plus, okay, element is getting more important for them and is really helping us attract more investors.
So we've got a bit of an MIV perspective on how Microfinance Plus has changed things. What about ADA's perspective? How are you supporting Microfinance Plus?
Yeah. Generally speaking, in ADA, we operate providing advice to LMDF as investment advisor, and also providing capacity building and technical assistance services in order to strengthen the institutions, let's say the actors of inclusive finance. And we operate targeting microfinance institutions, but also accelerators, fintechs, and let's say any kind of actors of financial inclusion. From an investment advisor point of view, we realized that the main difference in order to provide a risk analysis of the organization that we suggest LMDF will invest is the understanding of the technology that is behind the business model. This is very important, and it demands skills, specific expertise, and fortunately we have a very curious and expert team that can deal with this challenge. And yes, this is the big change that we had. In other terms, sorry.
No, I don't want to stop you at all. I was just, we're getting a lot of questions through from the audience now. Okay. And we're very, very grateful. Do continue to send in your questions to participants and panelists so we can keep going through as many as possible. But let's get the pace going, because we've already got, I think, about 36 to get through. One of the first questions that's been asked, and perhaps going back to Laura, what special packages do you have for microfinance operations and rural women? And this is a question from Nigeria. So what special packages do microfinance operations have for rural women?
Rural women. Yes, maybe we just to come back to the business model of Microfinance Plus. I think that most of these models are based on the pay-as-you-go, for example, models that provides basic services like energy to low-income people. About women, I have to confess that there is a lot to do yet that still remain. If I'm looking at the recent impact research and survey that has been done by 60 Decibel in February before the COVID-19 crisis, we see that, for example, less than 40% of the energy customers are women. And the decision in a family to buy an energy equipment for 60% is coming from men. And the use of devices is also decided by men. I think that we have to be very influencer in providing not only financing, not only advice, but also to make this kind of services more oriented and allow women to use them in a wider way. Yeah, there is a lot to do on this sense, but in the selection, thinking about investment advisor, in our selection, we always try to track the importance of the investees for women targets, and particularly when we are in remote area like rural.
Yeah, of course, Raymond.
Can I just perhaps add there to the question? So today the assets of LNDF are invested at 64% into with women. Okay, so the ultimate beneficiaries of our investments are to 64%, nearly 2/3 women. The other one is during this COVID crisis. Okay, we as LNDF have also provided emergency funding to these MFIs, mainly in the agricultural sector. Okay, because if we would have not done this, okay, we might have run the risk that the food chain would be broken and we would create another disaster in addition to the health disaster, which is food scarcity.
Now we've got a rather different question coming in now. There's a lot of interest in internet connectivity coming from Kenya and Nigeria. How should we design financial saving platforms in rural areas without 3G internet connectivity? Any thoughts on this from either of you?
Yeah, this is the infrastructure is one of the concern in developing Microfinance Plus initiatives. Of course, the lack of infrastructure is painful for the institution that want to provide this kind of services. Let me just mention some solution that has been provided, for example, in Côte d'Ivoire, in Ivory Coast, where the example of Advance allowed smallholder farmers in cocoa cooperatives to access to saving products and also to specific school loans for the kids through a platform that is using a basic mobile phone like the Nokia standard one. And I think that the key is really to be innovative and to be client-centric. Understanding the need from the client and try to develop with the client, with the customer, the most powerful product, and also making alliance with the local operators as well. I think that we are living in a complex world, particularly when we talk about development, and complex problems cannot be solved by easy solutions. So alliances, cooperation with other actors is most of the time the key of the solution.
Anything to add, Raymond?
Oh, I think it's.
There's a lot to say.
No, I think there's a lot to say. Perhaps you can explain what Tula does.
I don't know if there is some question. Yeah, of course.
Quite a lot of questions on agricultural opportunities. Is there an opportunity for investment for digitization and agribusiness? A question coming from Vision Fund Kenya. So with COVID-19, is there an opportunity for investments for digitization and agribusinesses?
Yeah, Yeah, of course, there is opportunity for investment because as we have seen in all our post-COVID surveys, the agricultural sector is the one that has been less impacted. So it results the less risky. This means that investors are deeply looking at agricultural value chain sector for two reasons, as Raymond explained before, to maintain the food protection and on the other way to reduce risk for investment. Microfinance Plus can be a big opportunity today because it is joining the digital touch with the human touch. And this is the example of Tula that we observed very closely and we will, I hope, soon invest in. And this is a very example in which the client receive an end-to-end service, starting from the possibility to buy on credit the inputs like fertilizer or seeds, and till the selling of the crops after harvesting. And when we visited clients of Tula, we asked them what is the added value, the value proposition of this mechanism, this digital service. And for them was the fact that they are cared during all the value chain of their agricultural products.
I think that's a good example because, for example, the clients of Tula, they confirmed that they are ready, for example, to pay more, okay, for the seed, okay, because the quality of the seed is better, okay, and they are confident that through this cooperative kind of negotiating, they get a fair price for good quality.
Yeah.
Okay. On the other side, I think an element we have seen is also that in this COVID crisis, the microfinance plus institutions are doing better than are having less problems than the typical microfinance institution because of this combination of technology and human touch. Okay, so they are in a different link with their ultimate clients, okay, and they realize really that they sit in the same boat. Okay, we need to solve these problems together. I think that is what we have noticed over the last 6 months.
Just to complete, in the Tula example, we have farmers that are supported via SMEs during all the life cycle of their products. And also with visit of the agronomist that can go there in the field and helping them according to the kind of products that they are producing. And I think that for the farmer, is really a gain in trusting the institution that's accompanying during all the process.
And the farmer can concentrate on what he is good at, which is farming, okay, and not in buying seeds and in selling the crop, okay. And if the markets are closed, okay, you have an institution which helps you find other ways to sell your products.
So we've had a very good discussion about sectors and notably agriculture here, but we've got some questions on what regions we actually work in, coming from Pakistan. Perhaps Raymond, you'd like to tell us about our major geographic regional interests, particularly when it comes to Microfinance Plus.
I think what we said before is, so we are today active in 26 countries, okay? You might ask the question, why not in more, okay? So that's, I think, mainly a subject of, obviously, resources, okay, on our side and on the other side. The other one is, you know that as we are a public fund, okay, we obviously are restrained from investing in certain countries which are on the famous anti-money laundering list, okay, or terrorist financing list, okay, that limits us already in some countries. On the other side, I think we, as Laura said, we will be concentrating on agriculture, on technology, and always remain, I think, that is, we will not play the role of a private equity. Okay, we invest in a technology company because we only invest if we feel that there is this client focus, client touch, and the major objective is not that somebody is making money, but the major objective is that we create social impact and in those countries.
Yeah, if I just can
Yes.
add, we are open to to investigate in new countries, of course, with all the criteria that we have to fit with. Yes, our focus is really on organization that can provide added value to their clients. This is the main target, that criteria that we focus on.
And of course, across the globe, MFIs are facing new challenges because of COVID-19, which has perhaps been an elephant in the room until now. I've got a question from Myanmar. After COVID-19, do MFIs need to change their strategies and staffing? Should MFIs be changing what they're doing and how they do it because of COVID?
Yes, I think that COVID put the importance of digital at the first place, the really priority for MFIs. During COVID, MFIs realized that the only possible way to go forward was to digitalize, because the employees were working remotely. They were able to reach clients only via digital devices, at least telephone, but also via SMEs, WhatsApp group, etc. And this is an opportunity for MFIs to this transition to digital that has to be even faster than what's expected before. I think that this COVID-19, in our experience, and the audience can find more information on our survey that we did with all our portfolio MFIs. They had the opportunity to know better their clients, because during the lockdown, for example, they were obliged to be in contact more frequently with the clients in order to understand where they were impacted, how they were impacted, the families, the situation that were living, and in order to understand the risk of their portfolio, how to reschedule deadlines, for example, and any kind of restructuring of their portfolio. So I think that MFIs can learn about the COVID situation, understanding better their client and being more client-centric.
I just can perhaps add from our side, from LEDF side, is that now you might imagine that we have spent a lot of time in restructuring discussions of certain loans over the last, and there exactly what Laura just explained, we have noticed is that those who are further in their digitalization, okay, obviously had a much easier response, had a much easier reaction, could really help their clients in a different way than those who had not done the past yet. And as always, those of you who know me, I'm an optimist, okay? So I think it has forced many MFIs to accelerate their digitalization process, okay? Which in the end is also not a bad thing.
And thanks, Raymond. That's an excellent segue into a question that we've had coming in from Rwanda and from Nigeria on the more concrete measures that ADA is doing to help institutions to take advantage of low-cost technological solutions that are now available.
Okay, so the measure.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's concretely available from ADA to help MFIs with technology?
Yeah, I was mentioning at the beginning the fact that we operate in two ways. providing advice for LMDF. So there is this selection that we do of for potential become an investees of the fund and receiving funding. This is one way, and we have a specific department that is doing that. And we are looking at this kind of microfinance plus, globally speaking. So there is at first step, there is no limit in the countries that we want to operate in, but we have then to define and to fit with the criteria that Raymond explained earlier. The other component is the technical assistance. What we are doing, and for this we have a focus on the African continent, and particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. We provide assistance to microfinance institutions or to any other kind of operators in order to help them in improving their digitalization process or implementing digital platform. This is a pilot project that we are doing in Senegal in order to really help farmers, smallholder farmers, to access to digital services, but also to help microfinance institutions to look more in depth on the agribusiness, for example, and we can do that through specific technical assistances, capacity building services.
And I suppose leading on from this, given that the capacity building is a very complementary service to an investment service, Raymond, I've got a question from Kenya on whether there's an opportunity for new investments, particularly in digitization, resulting from COVID.
Yes, as I said, so obviously there are these opportunities. We just to digitization, obviously you are closer connected technology-wise to your clients. Okay. On the other side, I think, and Laura said it, I think already 2 times, is we need that human touch. Okay. So we will not invest in technology, pure technology companies. There in Luxembourg, for example, we have other institutions, okay, which sometimes we contact them, okay, and to say, listen, we can't help this company because it's not in the framework of what we are supposed to do, but okay, it will help create or develop the infrastructure in a certain region in Africa, for example, okay, would you? That's private equity houses, that's all the members of the House of FinTech, okay, so where we have in Luxembourg a whole bunch of organizations who are ready to help, okay, who are only focused to help technology-wise, okay, not on the social impact-wise. So we are connected with them and we can work together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that there is also the need to make this markets more mature. For example, we preferably and prioritarily we are focusing on senior loans. We offer senior loans to microfinance institutions and to microfinance plus organization. But the technology sector is not so mature. And most of the time there is a need, for example, of equity, subordinated loans. Yes, and I think that the answer in this case is to have a sort of blended finance, to develop blended finance initiative in order to allow each actors to provide a specific part, a piece of the puzzle. And there are local public actors, international public actors that can complement the financial service that LMDF is providing, such as the senior loans with guarantees, for example, or to reinforce the equity of the organization through equity investment.
Mm-hmm. And I've got a question coming through from Ghana, which I think follows on what our impact investors are actually looking for when they invest. Do impact investors in MFIs take into account the extent to which investee institutions are building client resilience? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I want to mention that in terms of social impact, I mentioned before the differences, no? The fact that when we look at the Microfinance Plus organization, what is different is to consider the technology that is behind this, their business model. What is not so different is the measuring of their impact. And I think, and maybe Raymond will add, will complete, that impact investors are firstly look at impact of their investment, and secondly they want to measure it. They want to be accountable and transparent in front of their investors. And in the Microfinance Plus sector, we have seen that we can continue use the same tools. If I'm thinking about the tool in measuring social performance that we use for standard and traditional microfinance institution, this is fitting also with Microfinance Plus and pay-as-you-go, for example, initiatives. And even more, the example of COPA results really excellent percentage of the social performance indicator tool. And on the other end, I think that is not only about intention. The company has to demonstrate the impact and has to measure what it's doing. For example, in order to guarantee client protection, and if we are thinking about over-indebtedness and data protection of the clients, these are the two topics that are more concerning the fintech and also the Microfinance Plus actors.
I just can add to that. I obviously 100% agree. If you look at our reporting, if you go to our website, you will see, for example, take our normal annual report, and you will see how many pages are on numbers and how many pages are comments or stories about the impact we create through our investments. And then, obviously, as I said already before, and to come back to the blended finance, okay, if you see, and that is also the interest, I think, of our institutional investors, okay, among which, for example, the European Investment Bank, okay, they also are interested because they feel by their articles of incorporation, by their objective, they fill the financing part of the technology or the agricultural business, okay, but they want to blend their finance with the financing we are doing, which means creating social impact. And social impact, for me, by definition, impact means long-term, which means resilience.
And I think this brings us nicely to a comment that we've got from Nigeria. It's okay to have digitalization, but it's important to find a realistic mix with human contact in this type of environment. And when you've got social issues at the centre, I think this comes to the fore. Any comments for MFIs looking to maintain this human contact in a digitalised world?
It's absolutely important, and we use this criteria when we look at potential investees. The human touch is always relevant when we work with low-income people, but not only, even in developed countries. Just to mention that, for example, when a pay-as-you-go organization provides and launch a product in remote areas where there is not energy, there is no light, of course, the fact to provide this service from zero in our understanding could be very welcome from everybody. So start having lights in the house because the impact is very strong. But for those people, there is a mindset change that is huge because they have to trust on the device. They have to trust in signing a contract, in engaging, in paying even 50 cents per day when they live with $2 per day, for example, in order to access to something that was almost unbelievable before. And I remember when the organization COTO told us that is an organization that is providing as a pay-as-you-go for energy, solar energy, that is working in Western African countries, when they said, yeah, it seems logical, but we spend days in let people understanding how is it feasible. And this presence of our agent in the field was so important because the question was, what happens if it doesn't work? Let the neighbor start first and I will see. And so there is really a mind change and changing the culture that has to be ensured only with the human presence and the proximity before to become extended to the local market.
Can I just add a comment on the investor side of LEDF? Okay, we need to understand that all these, our investors, they are all working in corporations in our countries, okay? And so mainly in Luxembourg. And obviously technology in a service country like Luxembourg is very high. And their concern, all of their concern, I participated to a panel 2 weeks ago, their concern is with all the digitalization, with all everything which we call artificial intelligence, okay? How do we make sure this human aspect is remaining, is still there? And this is why I said before, they are more sensitized, okay? I'm always coming back, they are much more sensitized to these concerns of investing my money. I invest my money in something which is human contact, where I can put faces on it, okay, where I can hear stories from, okay, and not where I never know where my money in the end ends up to, okay, but I have a high financial return.
So we've had quite a lot of questions on social impact, but I've got a very interesting question coming through from Costa Rica, and greetings to Costa Rica. It must be very early in the morning your time. What about climate adaptation through Microfinance Plus and digital?
Yeah, if we think about energy, all the pay-as-you-go models is absolutely relevant to link them with the climate change. The first objective of most of the pay-as-you-go energy models is to reduce the use of kerosene and the impact, the emission of carbon emissions. And this is the first impact that this kind of model can provide in order to reduce the impact emission. In general, about microfinance, there is an importance on resilience to provide, improve the resilience of the clients. And I would like to mention an example about saving, for example. And this is something that can be provided digital or not, but is such an important point to improve resilience for the clients. We did interviews very recently during the COVID period to clients of MFIs, and the first actions that they did during the lockdown was the use to face this difficult situation was the use of their savings. And access to savings is really key in order to improve them, their resilience. And this is an information that maybe we already had, but is now the effect. And I think that this has to inspire also microfinance institutions in order to open up to this kind of service that can become more reliant for their clients.
And again, LMDF is included in the Luxembourg Green Exchange, okay, which is very important for our investors, okay. And Luxembourg Green Exchange is the largest green exchange in Europe for the moment.
And this brings us to another question. I mean, the impact of a lot of dynamics going on in the world at the moment, be it coronavirus or climate change, mean that 150 million people are likely to be pushed back into extreme poverty, according to the World Bank. In Sri Lanka, we've got a question of how microfinance can contribute to normalisation again, how microfinance can reverse the trends and stop these 150 people being pushed into poverty.
Yeah, I think that, yes, providing with adapted services in order to, if we're linked to climate change, to reduce vulnerability of the clients. And I think that this is the traditional way in which microfinance contributes and still contributing to the reduction of poverty. But as I mentioned earlier, the fact that financial inclusion and technologies can help in moving a step forward and reducing poverty and attaining social SDGs through any other kind of access to basic needs is really relevant. How to do that? Looking at the client needs first and being very innovative, thinking out of the box, and involving different partners and making alliance with different kinds of actors. I think that maybe is not the silver bullet, but is something that we see in the field that can be done with the help also of the supporter like Luxembourg Place, for example.
I think it also is a question of, in your question was normalization. The question is, what does that mean? Okay, I think that's my personal opinion. That does not mean that we want to go back where we are coming from. Okay, because we see the result of it. Okay, so I say in general, what we find is, and again, I'm an optimist, okay, we find, and everybody has studies done worldwide since many years, that poor people are by definition more creative and innovative than people who have everything, okay? And I think this will help us a lot in those countries, okay? But we all need to adjust to it and really say, where are the new needs? That's what Laura just said.
Okay, picking up on this optimism, Raymond, we've got an interesting question coming in from Ethiopia. What are the changes that are likely to happen then as a result of the COVID and the trends we're seeing in the microfinance sector?
I can speak, I let Laura speak about the microfinance. I can speak in general. I think what we realize, at least in our countries, okay, and I'm again speaking from the investor side, okay, in our countries, the sensitivity has increased. We have more and more investors, for example, who or people who friends of mine who call me and say, listen, how can I invest in LMDF? And then when I say, why suddenly do you want to invest in LMDF? They tell me, because my kids asked, where is our money invested? Okay, because the younger generations will not tolerate, okay, that the gaps between highest income is, etc. That 5 people in the world own as much as 50% lower classes all over the world. They will not accept this. And that is why we will see, in my opinion, that the business overall, okay, will be influenced by the need to create social impact at all levels, okay? And I think that is, again, trend which is accelerated by COVID.
Well, maybe I will repeat myself, but I think that digitalization is to
Yes.
foster this digitalization in microfinance. We will see that very soon, for sure. And the fact that there are a better understanding of the client for the MFIs that are able to make this change. This is something that represents really an opportunity, and the agricultural sector as well. I think that these three are the main changes in microfinance after COVID. Of course, there will be an impact that will be different country to country, region to region, that is independent from the microfinance sector in itself, that would be determined by the situation in the country, persisting of lockdown policies, for example, or level of economic crisis. We see that the American continent is more impacted rather than economically speaking, and with restrictions coming from the governments compared to the African one. So maybe there will be some microfinance institutions that will be more impacted, and some of them will not survive. But I think that the ones that will succeed will be the ones that are more close to their clients and will be able enough and flexible enough to understand the needs and adapt as fast as they can their products to them.
And of course, this topic of digitalization has come up an awful lot, as you'd expect of this particular webinar. I've got a question coming in from Myanmar. How should we prepare to be successful when it comes to digital transformation, especially in rural areas? What do MFIs need to do to make sure that a digital transformation is a success?
Yeah, so there is different different challenges when we look at the digital transformation. Infrastructure that are available, this is first. The starting point, the basic information system that they are using, and third, but maybe I would have said first, their strategy. Why? First question, why they want to go to digital. And in this question, in the answer of this question, they can realize which target they want to serve. And building their digital platforms and building their alliance with other operators and building their infrastructure and the human resources that are needed and the financing that are needed to go to the transformation in order to provide the best service to their clients. I think that there are some, today at least, some resources that can be used at an international level, because a lot of DFIs, for example, or investment funds are looking for this investment opportunities. There are some countries in which there is, they are struggling in having the good information services, and human resources as well. This is a big topic because it's not only about the readiness of the client in receiving a digital product, is also about the readiness of the employees and how they are prepared and skilled to do that.
I just want to add a comment to, you said infrastructure is the first one. Okay, I think many countries were until now relying on their public sector to provide the infrastructure needed. And I think many countries need to realize, and if you look at those who were successful, was not the public sector in itself, okay, or alone. It was always the public sector with some private investors who see, okay, the opportunity in those countries. And just to give you an example, here in Luxembourg, we have now initiatives and we have people in consulting firms who are just specialized, okay, on private equity in Africa, which support to microfinance, which means everything which microfinance cannot do, they are ready to help it to support it.
So we're coming to our last 5 minutes now. Well, actually slightly under. Thank you so much for submitting all these questions. It's been fantastic to have so much participation. Perhaps I'll do 2 very quick questions to finish off on. I'll start with one, which is on agri lending, which we've mentioned a bit before. It's got a lot of inherent risk and yet is very important for alleviating concerns over food shortages and general human suffering. This is a question from Nigeria. How do you invest, taking into account the importance of agri lending, but also its risk?
Yeah, we have to say that before COVID-19, and this is why I say that it's an opportunity, because before COVID-19, agricultural sector were considered as the riskier one, and a lot of initiatives in terms of investors, in terms of capacity building, technical assistance, were intended to invest in agricultural value chains, but with limited results, I would say. After COVID-19, I see that there is more and more investors that are looking for this sector, and I'm very happy on that, because it has been revealed as less riskier on one end and more impactful, because before I mentioned the first action that the clients did during the lockdown was to access to their savings. The second action is reducing expenses, and first food expenses. So this is important in order to reactive the economy, in the local economy, using the food value chain that is really relevant for local people and the clients of the microfinance sector as well. So this is maintaining a risk, and I think that investors today are a little bit relaxing their criteria, and on the other aspect is to add and complement the investment side with technical assistance and facilities initiatives.
I think there's another element, which is we all realize that the low risk doesn't exist anymore. The impossible, what we thought impossible 9 months ago, okay, has showed up to be possible. So I say agricultural sector is benefiting also from the fact that all the others became or are perceived as being riskier also today.
So I think this webinar has given us an awful lot to think about, notably your words there on changing attitudes to risk. I'd now like to wrap up with one final question and final thoughts to you both. This comes over from Ethiopia. And it's what sort of new tips do you have for MFIs if going forward in this changed context? What new advice would you have for MFIs looking to support financial inclusion in this changed context? Any advice? So closing words, keep it short, Raymond and Laura.
Okay. Yes, for me, I don't know if it is new because I'm using all the time, but it's really client centricity and looking at the contribution that MFIs can provide to attain the social development goals. Simply that.
Yes, 100% agree.
Perfect. That was extremely short then, Raymond and Laura. Thank you very, very much. Thanks to everyone for all their participation today. I hope it's all proved extremely useful. Thanks especially to Laura and Raymond for their time and their interesting insight. A replay will be available on ADA's website tomorrow, and I apologise for not getting through everyone's questions, but I'm sure you can reach out to ADA and they'll be willing to help you and offer further support. So thanks again, everyone. It's been great hearing from you, and hope to have you at another Microfinance lunchtime break soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.